Welcome to the scenario, remote execution on a domain controller. Welcome everyone, whether you've been going through the whole RTFM video library, or if you're just jumping into these really awesome scenario videos, this is gonna be a good one. In this video, we're gonna be generating a pretty unique sliver implant that calls back to Phyllis Snyder's workstation and then out to the internet, back to our C2 server, and we're gonna use that implant to basically further our compromise of the Cyber Inc. Active Directory forest, thus completing the objectives for our mission. But before we actually start generating implants, I wanna kind of talk through what we're about to do. So I mentioned our sliver implant is going to call back through Phyllis Snyder's workstation. And the reason for that is domain controllers do not typically browse out to the internet. You should not ever see administrators logged into the domain controller surfing the internet on a web browser. That's just extremely uncommon. Now, if you think back to the very beginning of the RTFM video library, we talked through how Phyllis Snyder's workstation has an HTTP sliver implant running on it. What this emulates is a user browsing the internet from a web browser. So again, that is not going to look very normal on the domain controller. So we're going to create a reverse TCP sliver implant. What that's going to do is execute on the domain controller, communicate back to Phyllis Snyder's workstation, and then out the workstation to the internet. Not only will this look more realistic in the Cyber Inc. domain, but if you ever encounter a really secure enclave that just has the internet blocked, you can still funnel your traffic through these different hosts. So with that out of the way, let's get our sliver implant generated. Let's get this TCP pivot name set up. So jumping into Rogue Arena here, we need to go back to our main sliver menu. This is going to allow us to create a pivot listener. And if you're new to sliver like I am, I'm normally using Cobalt Strike and Mythic. Just sit back and watch this. Feel free to take it all in. Every remote access tool does things much differently. So with this to work, we're actually going to start a pivot listener on Phyllis Snyder's workstation. We're going to generate an implant that works against that pivot listener, and then we're going to execute that implant on the domain controller. So we're back to our main menu here. We can do help pivots, and we can see all the different pivot commands that are available to us. We really want to start a TCP pivot listener. So I'm going to do help pivots TCP, and we can get even more helpful syntax here. So I'm going to do pivots TCP. We're going to give it the TAC L option for the port. And then we're just going to give it a random port. Sure, 9898 sounds good. I do want you to think through this a little bit. The domain controller is going to be communicating back to that workstation on whatever port you set here. That port will also have to be allowed through that workstation firewall. In our case, all the workstation firewalls are off in this lab. And even in the real world, I've seen a lot of times workstations have a lot of different ports open, or the firewall's turned off altogether if they're on an internal trusted VLAN, which is kind of the case that we're simulating here. So I can use the port of 9898. We're going to go ahead and hit enter. It says started TCP pivot listener. We can do pivots. We see our pivot right here, port 9898. Now we need to generate an implant that calls back to that pivot. We will need the workstation IP address, so I'm going to list it out right here for reference. And I do have some notes here somewhere. Perfect. This is our pastable right here that we can use to get started. So looking through here, generate TCP pivot. I do need to change this IP because again, it's going to basically call back to this workstation. So I need to make sure I have the IP address listed successfully. So let's get that. It's going to create an implant that's going to call to my specific Phyllis Snyder workstation on port 9898. So let's fire that off. It's going to take a couple minutes to compile up this binary for us. And I do want to mention, this is one of the many strengths of Sliver. Sliver is compatible against a wide range of hosts. ARM processors, x86 processors. I believe you can run it against Linux systems too. Definitely a Swiss Army knife. It's not the best UI, but just the wide range of devices you can run it on, it is sure to come in handy for you. So if you have some time, definitely set up Sliver on your own home lab, play around with it, get used to it, because you never know when you're going to need it. Awesome, our build finished successfully. Immense Mailman. I love the little names it puts on here. So now we want to upload this payload to the target domain controller, and then we want to execute it. To upload it, we're actually going to upload it somewhere where it can blend in really well. So let's see if we can find a good spot. Don't forget, we have to give it the double backslashes since we are back in the Sliver main menu area. We'll do $. Let's make sure our creds work. Awesome, looks really good. So we're going to do C, Windows. We're actually going to put this implant in System 32 with all the other system files. And we're going to hope it blends in and looks good and the defenders won't find it. And then I want to show you a really cool trick. I always like to use the asterisk as much as I can. So if I do WU star, this will only list out any type of file or folder that matches WU. That way, instead of listing out the entire System 32 directory, thousands of files in my terminal, I can be a little more precise and say, you know what? I just want the WU, right? Anything after that. And then look, I get a nice little printout back. It doesn't blow up my whole history. Now I can pick a file name I want to blend into. Kind of like back in the user persistence section where we uploaded it as adobe.exe in the Adobe folder. I'm going to upload it as whoops.exe right next to this DLL. It should blend in really, really well, and that'll just be one less thing a defender can catch me on. So this path looks awesome. Let's scroll up to that generated implant right up here. Perfect. And then we can start our upload command. So let's do upload, got our exe here. I'm gonna copy paste because I love it. Whoops.exe. Let's do our upload. And we're gonna confirm it made it up there by doing our ls command again. I used to say dir to be sure, right? So we're gonna ls. We have our whoops.exe right here. That means our implant made it up successfully. And now we just have to execute it on the target. Now again, we could go back to any number of those 3 remote execution commands we already covered. And in this case, I'm probably gonna do the sc.exe remote execution. I just love that one. You're not creating anything new on the host. You're just modifying an existing service to point at your binary, executing it, and then going back. I'm gonna go pretty quick here just because I already covered this in the previous video. So you may see me take some shortcuts because I already know this VSS service is gonna be great. So we'll do cmd, exe, whack-c, start, whack-b. Give it our full path to our payload. Error equals ignore. Fire that one off, change service success. Let's kick it off. Start VSS. Should pop back and say, hey, you know, it didn't respond in a timely or orderly fashion. Go check out the previous video. I explained exactly what that means. But the big thing I don't want you all to miss, new session, right? So it kicked off our sliver implant on the domain controller and then called us back. So exciting. So let's go ahead, let's hit enter. We do want to set that service back just so it doesn't break or keep spawning our implant on us. So let's do config VSS, bin path equals C, Windows, System 32, vsssvc.exe, error equals normal. Normal. Looks like I had a typo in normal. And we can verify, we could do sc, the host name, qc, vss, and that's gonna tell us the exact bin path that's loaded. As you can see, set back correctly. But now I wanna go back. I wanna check out that DC session we just got. We'll do our background, sessions, and we're working our way up. We got a lot of sessions here, but check this one out right here. Pivot callback from shy DC1. Again, it's calling out from this target port, but it should be hitting our Phyllis Snyder workstation on whatever we set up our pivot listener on. I think it was 90 something, right? So let's go ahead, let's try our sessions, tac I. Let's make sure it's working correctly. We can do a PS, see what's going on that host, who's on that host, that sort of thing. Cool. Looks good. We have done great. We've got on that domain controller. From there, we can further baseline the Chicago domain. We can dump hashes for every user in the Chicago domain. Definitely a ton of really exciting stuff to come. We'll see you in the next one.